Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Bava Kamma. We are up to Perek Hey Mishnah Aleph. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbayev Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov Chana ben Miriam Sason ben Rayin Yoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam beGan Eden Amen and Lehavdi ben Chaim lechaim v'derefua shel emav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa betoch Shah Cholei Israel. This chapter continues with the laws of an animal that does damage. The first Mishnah discusses a case where it is uncertain how much the animal's owner is obligated to pay. Shor shenagach et hapara, a tam ox gored and killed a cow that was known to be pregnant sometime before the attack. V'nimtza ubarah b'tzidah, and the cow's fetus was then found dead at its mother's side. V'en yadua im ad shol nigecha yalda, but it is not known whether the cow had given birth before the ox gored it, in which case the fetus was not killed by the ox, and the ox's owner would not have to pay for it. Or whether the cow gave birth after the ox gored it, in which case the fetus was presumably killed by the ox and the ox's owner would have to pay for it. Witnesses saw the ox gore the cow from a distance, so the ox's owner must definitely pay for the damage to the cow. They later approached the cow and found a dead fetus next to it, but they do not know whether the fetus died before or after the goring. Mishalem chatzi nezek lapara uvia nezek lavalad. The law is that the ox's owner pays half damages for the loss of the cow and 1/4 damages for the loss of the fetus. Since it is unknown whether he is obligated to pay for the fetus, he pays only half the usual half damage payment, which comes to 1/4. Since the ox is a tam, the owner is liable to pay for only half the damage, like we learned in chapter 1, Mishnah 4. With respect to the damage to the cow itself, for which he is certainly liable, he makes the usual half damage payment. But with respect to the fetus, for which his liability is uncertain, he divides the amount in question with the victim. Therefore, he pays only 1/4 of the fetus's value. Now, this requirement to pay 1/4 follows the opinion of Sumchus, who rules that when a doubt arises as to who owns something, it is divided evenly between the two sides. The sages, however, rule that since the owner of the fetus is trying to collect payment from the owner of the ox, it is up to him to prove his claim that it died because of the attack, what we call a motzim mechavero alav haraya. If he cannot do so, he receives nothing. This is how the Rav explains the Mishnah. Now the opposite situation, where the cow gored the ox, v'chen parash shenakcha et hashor, and the law is similar where a tam cow that was previously known to be pregnant gored an ox, v'nimtza v'lada b'tzida, and its newborn calf was then found at its side, v'en yadua imat shelo nakcha yilda, but it is not known whether the cow had given birth before it gored the ox, in which case the calf was not part of the goring animal, and so the owner would have to pay only from the body of the cow and not from the body of the calf. Or whether the cow gave birth after it gored the ox, in which case the calf was still part of the cow at the time of the attack, and therefore the owner would have to pay from the body of the calf as well. We have learned that when a tam does damage, the victim takes the tam itself as payment up to the value of half the damage, like we saw in chapter 1, Mishnah 4. In our case, if the cow was still pregnant with this calf when it gored the ox, and therefore the calf was part of the animal that gored, the victim may also take the calf. But if the calf was born before the attack, the victim may take only the cow. Mishalem chatzi nezek min hapara uvia nezek min havlad. The cow's owner pays half damages from the body of the cow and 1/4 damages from the body of the newborn calf. If the cow is available, the victim can collect his entire half damage payment from it. But if the cow is not available, for example, it ran away, and so the victim has to collect his payment from the body of the calf, he can take only half of that payment, meaning 1/4 of the damage. Another practical application of the Mishnah's law is that even if the cow is available but it is worth less than the payment he has owed, the victim collects only half the difference from the calf. In this situation too, since it is uncertain whether the calf was part of the goring animal, its owner needs to pay only half of the usual half damage payment from it, which is 1/4. Now this ruling too follows the opinion of Sumchus. According to the sages, the victim, meaning the owner of the ox, cannot collect anything from the body of the calf once he proves that the cow gave birth after the goring and the fetus was therefore part of the goring animal. And the Rav does tell us that the halacha follows the opinion of the Chachamim and not Sumchus. That is then the Mishnah Aleph. Mishnah Bet discusses damage that results from someone bringing his possessions into the property of another. If a potter brought his pots into a homeowner's courtyard without permission, and an animal belonging to the homeowner broke them, patur, the homeowner is not obligated to pay for the pots because the potter did not have permission to bring them there. Vim huska bahen, and if the homeowner's animal was damaged by the pots, for example, tripped over them and was injured, Balek derot chayav, the owner of the pots is obligated to pay for the damage to the animal since he created a hazard, a bowl, a pit in his neighbor's property without permission. Vim ichnis birshut, but if the potter brought his pots into the courtyard with permission and they were broken there, Bal chatzer chayav, the owner of the courtyard, the homeowner is obligated to pay for the pots, because by allowing them to be brought into his courtyard, he presumably agreed to protect them, even if he did not say so explicitly. The Tana of this Mishnah holds that when the homeowner allowed the potter to bring the pots into his courtyard, he automatically accepted to become their watchman, their shomer. As a watchman, he is required to protect the pots from damage, and if they are damaged as a result of his negligence in any way, even if the wind tips them over and breaks them, he must pay the owner. The next Mishnah cites a Tana who disagrees. In this case, if the homeowner's animal was damaged by the pots, the potter does not have to pay. Since he had permission to bring his pots into the courtyard, he's not responsible for damage that they might cause there. A similar case, if someone brought his produce into a homeowner's courtyard without permission, and an animal belonging to the homeowner ate it patur, the homeowner is not obligated to pay for it because the owner of the produce did not have permission to bring it there. And if the homeowner's animal was damaged by the produce, for example, it slipped on the produce and was injured, the owner of the produce is obligated to pay for the damage to the animal since it created a hazard in his neighbor's property without permission. The owner of the produce must pay only if the animal tripped or slipped on the produce and was thereby injured. If, however, the animal became sick from eating the produce, the owner of the produce is exempt because he cannot be held liable for damage that the animal brought upon itself willingly. But if the owner of the produce brought the produce into the courtyard with the homeowner's permission and the homeowner's animal ate it, the owner of the courtyard, the homeowner is obligated to pay for the produce because by allowing it to be brought into the courtyard, he presumably agreed to protect it. The Mishnah adds the case of the produce to teach that a homeowner who gives permission for someone to put items in his property accepts responsibility not only for property which is fragile and easily damaged, but even for produce which is not as easily damaged and therefore less likely to require protection. And that is an abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have an Erev Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.